Hey, good morning and happy Aloha Friday. Got one more week before spring break. Just a quick heads up, I probably will not be doing a weekly update next week, next Friday, right before spring break. Just seems, kind of productive. And so this will be our last um, weekly update for a couple weeks, but I will be checking back in once we come back from spring break. And so what I want to talk a little bit about this week is, we all go through hard, difficult times, and in middle school, that definitely seems to be amplified by for many of my students. And what I talk about a lot is just making small little steps, small little gains, and that is better than making no gains at all. And so we talk about just keeping moving forward and those small little gains, about just being 1% better every day, and having that growth mindset is so important. Um, if you're just 1% better every day for a whole year, you're almost going to be 38% times better at the end of that. And so, this typical approach of making, large goals and these huge big leaps that, we talk a lot about. I know in my Facebook feed, I'll see these, amazing weight loss and that kind of stuff. That often is good in theory, but it leads to burnout, frustration, failure, and that kind of thing. And so, what I really focus on in class is those small incremental improvements, those little bitty habits that aren't flashy. They're kind of boring, but those kinds of things are, that consistent improvement is what we look at. And so some tips that I share with student on how to achieve that is do more of what already works. So if something's working for you, keep at it. That, it's not flashy, but if it's working, keep doing it. If it's not working, change it. So I will often ask, how's that working for you? If that's not working, we might want to change it. So, like with homework, if you're just kind of winging it, not writing things down, how's that working for you? Is that working good? If it is, okay. If it's not, if you're having missing assignments, you might want to change something. Next one would be avoiding tiny losses. So, a lot of times my kids make things a lot more complicated than they need to be. I call it self sabotage. So they'll come to class without a pencil, or their iPad's not charged, or they don't have their science notebook. They definitely make things a lot more complicated than they need to be. So they'll sabotage themselves. And so avoid those tiny losses. And then the next one would be measure backwards instead of measuring forwards. We talk a lot about having these goals and having that be where we want to be, but then we kind of ignore how far we've come. And so I talk about measuring backwards. Think about how far you have come, and your growth that you have achieved. That is as important, almost more important than your goal. And so, don't think about how far you have to go, think about how far you've come. Those are some great things. Okay, so as far as what's coming up, of course, spring break, which I already mentioned, is coming up. I'm also going to put some of the dates in here for the state I Learn test. Those are tentative dates, those aren't hard set yet. And those are, towards the end of April, beginning of May. So we still have some time on that, but I'll put that in here just for some reference. I'll have more information in the future about, things you can do at home to help prepare for that, as far as getting plenty of sleep and that kind of stuff. As far as what's happening in class, in science, we've started reproduction. We've already taken the vocab quiz on that. If kids did not get a good grade on that, they can take it again. They can take it up to 3 times. And so if you see that in Skyward, you might remind students about that. Next week, we're going to begin to look at meiosis. And so we're going to start going into sexual reproduction and how that process really encourages genetic diversity in populations. We're not going to finish that before spring break. So we have quite a bit of time. We'll come back, do a little bit of review before we take the test in that. On biology today, we're taking the natural selection evolution test. And next week, I'll do a couple short lessons on classification and taxonomy. And we'll also start our review process for the biology I Learn test. And again, I'll have more information on that in the future. So, as always, thank you so much for everything you do as parents, caregivers that supports the learning that takes place in my class. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. Again, have a great week, have a great spring break, and I'll see you on the back end.